Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel and Aka Design. This video today is in response to a viewer request. So Lee, you had asked for more stenciling. So what I did, of course, you know, sometimes there's a little break in the communication from the ear to the brain. You said stenciling, so what did I do? I pulled out a whole bunch of stamps, caught myself in midstream, and proceeded to do some stenciling as you had asked for. So I think your comment or your request was on a video, maybe a follow-up Friday video, where I was showing some of the progress on some art journal pages. Because I have this masterboard collab going and have masterboard on the brain, I had several of these pages sitting around, and I thought, well, I could just as easily do stenciling on here. Same, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So what I did was I pulled out some stencils. It's probably, maybe I should flip this thing over. I was trying to protect my surface here, but that's probably hard to see. So these were the stencils I had pulled out initially. Don't know where this came from, but I love it. This might have been one of those home decor kind of things. And because I am always, you know, getting rid of packaging and trying to save space wherever I can, sometimes I cut things down. So anyway, I don't know. And this one I believe is a Martha Stewart, like a home decor type stencil. Quite often my default stencil, and it's getting pretty beat up, is this scrap piece of Punchinello. So this is the waste product when sequins are being made. And you can see from me squishing it into a place it didn't belong, I've now torn it in a couple places. But I still love this and use it often. Okay, so that's essentially what I pulled out. Now, I should probably, while we're talking stencils, just give me a second. I will show you how I store smaller stencils. Now this is just, I think this would have been a vintage jewelry thing, you know, hang chains and necklaces from there. It's got 6 hooks, and all I've done is well, a little tangling going on here. What the heck? Gonna be a little, do that gingerly so you don't rip well, okay, now I've got a second one down. So typically, if a stencil has a hole in it, like a factory hole, that's great. If it doesn't, I just punch a hole somewhere near the edge of the thing and put it on one of these binder rings. So I would have punched that hole. Sometimes the border is so skinny that there isn't room to punch a hole, so I then just try to pick an area on the stencil that is a wee bit stronger to hopefully not wreck the stencil by having it hang. So yeah, there's not total rhyme or reason to how I've done this, but there is. So for instance, on this, this is a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. So some like draftsman type stencils, very skinny ones that I have cut off a bigger stencil, you know, odds and ends. even this kind of this little ruler type. What is the year on that anyway? 2005. So, you know, one day I should probably get brutal and just go through these and eliminate some of them. Because honestly, it's like clothing and everything else in our lives. We only use a fraction of what we have. So, and of course, this system here does not, can't possibly, oh my goodness, can't possibly accommodate all the stencils that a person has. Some, especially if they were intended, oh, and I have these little brass ones in a thing like this. Some of these, this is just a ruler, plastic ruler type thing. Some of the stencils, particularly back in the day when people were stenciling their walls and so on, were gigantic, multi-piece things that came in on really thin mylar type stuff, surface, and oh, where is this one loose? And basically, you know, are almost impossible to store. If I can cut them down without losing the essence of the design, I do that. But I also have kind of a binder with more stencils, and I also have a plastic sort of storage box that I can slide under a piece of furniture with even bigger. It's a 12 by 12. It's big enough to accommodate 12 by 12s. Anyway, that was a lot of preamble, wasn't it? Just to talk about stencils. Anyway, this is what I chose. So let me just show you what's what here. So basically I used, as you can figure out probably very easily, I used this one in several places, and I tried to vary my pressure. Now, if you're thinking, oh, that looks kind of cool, it's because I then went in with a blue Sharpie and sort of did almost like a cast shadow type thing to make them look a little more three-dimensional. And you can also see that in other places, I've used this one. And because there's so much going on here, it depends, you know, which part of the stencil you use. That's going to result in different sorts of shapes. Now, I used a brown. First, I started out with a rather heavy brush pen, and then I switched to something, the other end, which was finer, and I basically outlined some of those shapes. Now, there are obviously lots that I never even touched, and I think that too is a design choice, because if I had done every single one, this would be so busy that, you know, who could stand to look at it? And again, of course, the intention with a master board is that at some point it will be cut down and used. You know, cards, pockets, side tucks, belly bands, whatever. Or, you know, even, I don't want to break the paper, but, you know, even a journal cover or whatever. Actually, that word pieces would be kind of cool on a journal cover. So that's what I did on this one. Then I had this blue one. Now, if you saw this one before, when it was just, you know, images and striped, really cheap, thin scrapbooking paper, I thought that was kind of nice. But then when I began adding stencils to it, basically two different kinds. This is a, what is it, Ranger? Is that the brand name? Oh, Tim Holtz, I guess, design. And then this was, oh, parts of this one. Now this is rather big, so I would just pick sort of intersections on the stencil where there were more things happening. And then again, same scenario. I randomly chose some of the shapes, both in the turquoise and this purpley color, to highlight. So that brings us to this moment. Now, what I wanted to do on a third master board, and actually, this is really becoming one of my favorites. If you saw, no, I don't know if it's aired yet or not, but in one recent video, by the way, all of these master boards were done with Ideals Magazine's images only, plus whatever would have been on the initial piece of paper. So, there was, if you missed that video, there was a lot of green with these pictures of, I don't know, are those mums or marigolds or whatever, and I didn't like it. So I began toning it down, and of course, once you start doing that, you come across other areas that feel like they need it too. Anyway, I am very fond of this thing as it stands. However, I also thrifted the other day this tube of copper acrylic paint. Now, those of you who have been here a while know that I love copper. And I thought, why don't we, and I sure as heck hope I don't ruin this. I'm going to go slowly. I picked a couple of fairly simple stencils. These are sort of border type things. Love this one, have used it a lot. Love this one, have used it a lot as well. And I thought I would, with a makeup sponge, a lid from Greek yogurt, this copper paint, attempt to add some of those type highlights. So pray for me and let's give this a whirl. Now, I'm using, of course, using lids like this or styrofoam plates or whatever is a good, cheap, free paint palette to use. And, you know, in this case, easy to clean. And of course, you can use it forever and a day because plastic never disappears. Now, the other thing I have on standby is this little thing with a lot of these. Must have bought this as an assortment at some time. These very, what the heck is going, oh, I see. These very stiff, these are not as stiff. I wouldn't use those. Bristle brushes that are very clearly shaped, different diameters, as you can see, from teeny weeny, that's like a 1/16 of an inch, all the way up. These two are probably about the same. Again, this would be 100 years old because the brand name is Plaid. 4, 8, and so there is a difference here, although it looks very similar. And then, of course, there's this even fancier one. This was probably really ergonomic. So I have, as I say, I have these on standby if I need to use a pouncing effect through the stencil. And I wonder, this is going to transfer less paint than a sponge would. So maybe that's what I'll start with. So let's just squeeze out a bit of paint. And again, you don't need a great deal. I'm not going to, at this point, dilute that in any way with water. And I think I'm going to, the chicken that I am, I'm going to, well, maybe let's use this one, get very close to the edge so that if I screw up, frankly, I can cut, you know, a strip off or whatever, and it's not going to, so I'm not doing it right in the middle of the, so dry brush. And of course, the idea always was that you know, you get some paint on there and you kind of pounce it so that you don't have a great big clump. So again, for more interest and a more random look, you kind of like to have your stencil coming off the edge of the page and perhaps at an angle of some sort. And again, this has less, this has less risk to it than if you were stenciling your wall. So if there is imperfection or if some accidentally gets under the stencil, it's not going to be the end of the world. That is okay. So maybe I'll just carry on a little more along the way here. And by not reloading the brush, you know, it will tend to get fainter and fainter. By overlapping where I put the stencil in relation to the area I just stenciled will also either create some overlap or provide, you know, offer kind of a space. Now, this may be, I should probably quit this because by doing this, I've kind of set myself up for doing the entire thing. So you can see a lot darker here than it is here. Maybe I will turn my thing around. The beauty of acrylic paint is that it really dries quite quickly. So I'm not really worried about, in fact, nothing transferred to the backside. This first bit was already dry before I laid this down again. So we see that that's working reasonably well with this. So I do want to introduce this other shape as well. Now, because copper is a metallic paint, I'm hoping that when all is said and done, that little bit of glimmer and shine that comes from a metallic paint will be, oh, you know what I should do? Just, again, switching horses in midstream. I will do a couple, maybe in the opposite corner, I'll do this again because I've already got paint on this brush. But I also want to try the makeup brush. I think that, you know, whoever woke up one day and said, you know what, there are no rules, you can't do it wrong, imperfection is the goal, blah, 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 really freed up a lot of creatives who, you know, because some of us never did get to be very good at perfect rubber stamping or perfect stenciling. This way, if we have a lighter, darker, angled, overlapped effect, then it's like, well, that's because we wanted to do it that way. Now, I hope I have a plastic bag near me. Typically, I always have a bag of some sort from packaging. And the only reason I'm doing that, or looking for that, is because, oh, there it is because, of course, if acrylic paint dries quickly on a piece of paper, it will dry equally as quickly on the end of a brush. And I don't want to you know, wash this brush at this moment, because number one, then I'll have wet bristles, but also I don't want the brush to harden and be ruined. Okay, so now we're going to use this makeup sponge. These are, you know, pretty affordable. You can buy them in the dollar store. I imagine that some are better than other quality. But again, for purposes like this, you know, once it gets hardened and no longer is very absorbent, you can either trim that part off with scissors or, you know, chuck the whole thing out and not feel particularly bad about it. So I'm just getting a wee bit of color on the... Now maybe I want to be a little more heavy-handed here with this. You know, really try to get the less of course I need more paint now. See, isn't that beautiful? Now, and just like I did with those last two examples that I showed you, I could also, when this is dry, and if I feel, if the spirit moves me, I can also go in, you know, maybe with black or, I don't know that I have a copper colored highlighter or a brown of some sort or whatever the design choice is, and do some line work, mark making on the, around these shapes that I'm stenciling on there. Going a little further down the stencil, and hopefully you can see that. I'm going all the way. Try not to do that circle if I can help it. That's the thing, that is the downside of punching holes in a hanging hole in the stencil, is that, you know, you then end up with that round circle that you may or may not want. I cannot tell you, whoops, how much I love that. Much more than that first stencil. So, and you may notice that even though I'm going over, you know, the clock face, the photo, whatever, I'm also trying to hit those, you know, those very plain yellow areas, because obviously that's where the stencil will show up most clearly. Now I could, maybe I should go this way just to change things up. I can hit some yellow parts here. Now, of course, a person could also spray through a stencil. That is a wee bit, you know, you lose some control with that. And of course, there is more prep work to do to protect your area. Like, I do this filming right at my desk. So, I mean, I have my planner, my keyboard, my laptop, all within a splash zone here. So, you know, I would need to shroud the whole place before even beginning to think about doing spray. So that is a bit of a downside. I love, love, love this. Lee, genius for asking the question. And you can see that so far, other than this part, I've been pretty symmetrical in what, pretty, you know, not symmetrical, but what am I trying to say here? Perpendicular, you know, I'm at right angles to the edge of the paper, or I'm not going off on a tangent or angling it. Again, that's in my preference. You, of course, would do whatever you feel like doing, and that's what makes us different. Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Now maybe I want to just isolate another little bit here. And again, you know, it's always better to put less paint on your palette than you think you need, because of course you can add more. If you make a gigantic puddle and end up using only a bit of it, number one, you could find that it has dried out on you, but you may also find that you have so much that you can't possibly, well, I guess, you know, maybe we're resourceful enough to do sort of, you know, have some book pages handy and use it up that way. But, and again, you'll see that here, darker, purposely fading out a bit. Now, another strategy that always makes for a more interesting composition, in my humble opinion, is having your whatever it is, whether it's a paper, a fussy cut, stenciling, stamping, bleed off the edge of the page. Now, that's, and if I miss the boat here and it goes on to this thing, I guess it would be better if I was on the other side, because then that would be more useful to me, or usable by me, than this chipboardy type thing. But I also realized that was kind of a busy surface for you to have to look at. So, you know, obviously protect your work surface and let whatever protection, if you're choosing paper or parchment or brown paper, or what this is a calendar, a desktop calendar pad, be the beneficiary of those extra bits of paper. Now, you know, you can see that there are a few marks starting to build up there. I will use up the last of this paint on here, and then I will probably call it a day for this video. Of course, you know, I think everyone has done some degree of stenciling. Okay, in this case, along this edge, I am doubling up or going over the original, the first stencil that I used. Whoops, it's caught on the edge. That's the problem there. Now, is this enough? Perhaps not. Pick up, I don't know if I have enough juice left on here to get anything more out of this. I can try. And of course, it's going to be less visible on this dark brown corner, equally as beautiful though, than it would have been on the yellow. Feels like something is lacking here and perhaps here. So look at me change my mind. You might want to make a note of that. On March, what day is it? 14th, 15th? Hazel changed her mind in the middle of a video. Who could have ever seen that coming? Anyway, I'm also, just as I'm, you know, talking to you and doing this, I'm also thinking that maybe this would be the perfect project to add something much darker to as well, because I do have those areas off, you know, really almost a black. So if I were to pull out my little scrap of Punchinello, where else did I say I had it? Oh, over here. Then, you know, maybe I should use this end and avoid that hole. And considering how much I love copper, even the look of this stencil feels like artwork to me. Okay. Now, the other thing I could do, but I won't, is try to just, you know, tap this out on here, but oh, there's really very little left. If you ever want to do any mark making with a sponge, your better bet is a natural sea sponge. And, you know, obviously those are more money, but they are a better thing than a man-made one. Okay, now I don't have any black paint right here. So maybe I will stop there and just ponder this. And I think you don't have to love copper as much as I do to appreciate just how nice it is to have a bit of glimmer and shine on a project. Oh, I love this so much. This is my favorite one so far. Although I will be showing you some additional work that I'm in the process of doing on the purple one. So, you know, purple is a color, a favorite color. So I'm going to stop there, but don't be surprised if you see this this masterboard surface again. Now, oh, sorry. I could, and I will, as I'm cleaning this brush, I will also wash out this sponge, because if I don't, this part, everything that has paint on it will harden and solidify, and then, you know, be prepared to throw it out. But if you wash it out, you will obviously extend the life of the sponge. Anyway, I was saying that if I were to, should I just, how long have we been here anyway? Maybe I should try one little discreet corner. Okay, I'll bring in my little thing of sponge, or of, these are makeup brushes. Where is this my, I don't know if that's my black one or not. This one might be. And let's see if I can find a fairly juicy, I don't know how juicy this one might be. Someone just gave that to me in our journal swap group, so I don't know. Whoops. To be honest, I've never had that particular brand. So we'll see if there's any juice here. It's Recollections Multi-Surface Ink, and it's called Vintage Black. So again, using my same strategy, let's see what happens if I add some. Ooh, that is dark, man. But look how nice. Oh, love it. Okay, you don't ever have to tune in again. Kidding. I want you to subscribe. I want you to come back. I want you to be here. What I was starting to say was that you know, unless I do something significantly more to this, I won't be bringing it back on a follow-up Friday video. Now, I don't know. This is a less effective thing. this is, you know, more like fabric. And of course, there are also stencils, but I'm not going to dig for it now, that have holes in a variety of sizes, which of course gives you a bit more variation than. And again, you can see that I am holding my stencil at an angle. I'm applying uneven amounts of pressure. And I'm staying away from any hard edges. So you can see, where's the first bit I did? So this is a heck of a lot lighter than this part here. So, you know, it's always a combination of what are you stenciling it on? How wet is your sponge, or, I mean, your, whatever your applicator is. Now let's see if I find a, so right here you can see I've done, you know, black on this really dark, and it does show up if you get close enough. Obviously higher contrast areas are going to be more in your face than others. Maybe I want to soften up this sharp edge here and a wee bit there. Maybe I should carry on a little bit more with the dots over that intersection of papers. Go over this photo a bit here. Oh, now I'm in the area of the torn parts. So if you ever see any Punchinello ribbon for sale, grab it, because you won't be sorry. I can guarantee you that. Now I better, okay, why doesn't somebody just tell me to stop before I go too far? I'm going to have to keep this front and center and use it. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there because this is how I always considered it right side up, but of course it doesn't matter. I am loving this. Now, again, because of the darker elements, oh, that's blue. Because of the darker elements, I could easily, this is black, go in. I don't know why I feel like I should be right here, and add that half circle type thing. So in this case, if I stick to all the bottoms or sides or whatever you want to call it, it's going to, it'll make more sense than if I did bottom here and top there. It's like, well, that doesn't really jive with what we know about how shadows work. And again, don't have to do every single one. But I defy you to stop once you start, because of course it is addictive. Whoops, kind of missed there. So maybe you end up with a thicker one every so often. So honestly, you could make doing a masterboard your life's work. Well, what did she accomplish in her life? Well, okay, there was that masterboard that was just so unbelievable. Yeah, I think that because that adds a bit of definition, of course, I would never just do a technique or a type of paper or whatever in one spot, because that doesn't breed, that doesn't add coherence to or unity to a piece. I should also do some of this on these darker areas. See what I mean about not being able to stop? But hopefully you can see how that sort of pops a bit more than the areas that don't have any. This is really dark here. Let's even add it to this dark guy and his friend and his first cousin and his ex-wife. All of these guys get one. OMG. And can you see why? And you can tell if you watched my February 28th video where I was doing the intro or the announcement about the upcoming Masterboard Madness collab. I flipped through dozens of masterboards, and I said at the time, and I'll say again, that some of them may never get cut up, because if I love them as they are, I can leave them as they are. Beautiful. Anyway, okay. 3 guesses as to what I'm going to do after I turn the camera off, and the first 2 don't count. Okay, guys, thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.